Alright, it's time to kick things off. We just need to install some software that we're going to need during the whole development cycle. First thing is make sure you're using Google Chrome. So if you don't have that installed already, it's a very simple process to do that. And it'll also work whether you're on Windows or Mac or Linux. So that's another good reason to use Chrome. The first thing we're going to install is Visual Studio Code. This is the app. It's like a text editor on steroids that we're going to be using to do our actual coding. And again, it's available on all platforms. It's completely free to use, developed by Microsoft, and has quickly become probably the most popular developer tool out there as far as your editors are concerned. So the only installation options that I want you to be careful to set up is making sure under this other tag we want Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to call it Code from now on. Hopefully that won't be too confusing. It will make it fully integrated with Windows. So if we right click on a file, you can directly open it with Code. It's also really important that this add to path is there. If you want the desktop icon, that's fine. I'll go ahead and do that as well. Other than that, the default installation is just fine and goes pretty quick actually for what all is included. Okay, we won't launch code right at this moment, and I will go ahead and get the installer out of the way. So now we just have the shortcut. The second thing we want to install is Node.js. Node.js basically gives us the environment, so a lot of behind the scenes stuff that will allow us to build JavaScript applications and actually it allows us to code the applications but gives us tools to build it properly to make it ready for deployment. So again, it's cross-platform, it's free and open source and all that good stuff. Okay, the defaults here I'm pretty sure are all perfect. It adds it to the path, which is important. It adds the npm package manager. So that's npm stands for Node Package Manager. We're going to be using that a lot. This is an area that until you need extras, don't bother installing them. You can always install them later. So if I don't know whether or not I'm going to need this, I just ignore it. Okay, and this install will take a bit. There's no there's no app for Node.js. There's not going to be an icon here. It's because it's all just files and executables that we're going to run from a command prompt. So there's no icon for that. All right, so I will remove that installer. And then the last thing we're going to install software-wise is a new command prompt or a new shell. So with Windows, it comes with what's called the command prompt. So in the old days, this was known as the DOS prompt. And if you launch that, then you can do directory listings and things of that nature. There's another environment called PowerShell. This is strictly for Windows. It is very similar to the old command prompt, but you can run special executables that are a part of PowerShell that gives you more Windows features. But for us, we want to install something called Git Bash. And so two things. Git is a tool for managing your code, making sure that you can check out your code, check in your code, make different versions of it, make different branches, so you can go work on something and then merge it back into the master branch. All these things we'll talk about later, but it's basically a code management tool used by pretty much all developers in the world. And the bash part of Git Bash is a shell that's typically found in Linux and Unix. So bringing that to the Windows environment means that you can move across different platforms and still kind of know what's going on. And I don't know, it's just a favored command prompt to what comes out of the box with Windows. So again, we're going to use this a lot, so not important that all of that makes sense right at this very moment. Okay, so for the options here, again, if you want the icon on your desktop, you can select that. And I go ahead and select using a true type font. It just makes it look a little better. And I always like to check for updates if that's an option. It's always good to be on the most recent software. Now this is an important one, so we want to make sure that Visual Studio Code is Git's default editor. That's the reason why we ordered or installed these things in this order. So go ahead and change that. And I'm pretty sure the rest of it we can just stick to the defaults. Yep. And so this will get installed pretty quickly here, and then we'll be able to use Git Bash, which again is just another command prompt or a shell. So it's not a GUI, it's all typing commands and such, which as a developer, believe it or not, even if you're developing web applications that are using the browser, or even if you were building a Windows application, you're still going to be doing a lot of commands at a command prompt. Alright, so that's done. And again, I'm going to just delete the installer. So just open this real quick and you'll see it's a prompt. But it's a bash script, so if you're familiar with Linux at all, you're going to be familiar with the commands. Otherwise, you can, of course, Google bash, and it'll show you all kinds of options, such as ls gives you a directory listing, pwd, print the current or print the working directory. But we'll be in here a lot. And actually, to verify, well, let me change these settings real quick. Kind of hard to see the font, even for me, and recorded. It might be even more tough. So, more tough might be tougher. So I am going to bump this, I think, to 16. That looks okay. And under looks, I'm going to set transparency to high because I think that looks cool. There we go. So now hopefully you can see the words or whatever, the command prompt much better. And just real quick to make sure what we installed previously is all good to go, to check to see if Node.js is installed. you can just type node and then -v, so that will give us the version. As long as it gives us a version, that means it's installed properly. Plus, in the future, you might install a tool or something that says you need to be running on Node.js version such or newer, so this is how you would know that. To make sure the package manager npm is installed, same thing, we'll just check the version, and then Git itself. So Git bash is this window that we have here with the shell, but Git itself is a client, it's a tool that's going to let us manage our code, as I said before, which we'll get into that and you'll understand it much more down the road. So for that one, you have to do -- version in order to see what version's installed. And just the fact that it works and shows us the version means it's installed properly, so we're ready to use Git. So that should be it at this point. So in the next video, we're going to set up some online accounts that we're going to need in order to manage our projects. So stick around. See you in a bit.